What is going on, everybody? Welcome back once again to the channel. So today I want to do a quick review of 28 Years Later. Okay, I just checked this movie out. Before I jump into this, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of the first two, the 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. I enjoyed both of those films, so I was very excited jumping into this one. But my favorite still is 28 Days Later with Cillian Murphy. I think he did an amazing job with that film. And then 28 Weeks Later was kind of a mixture for me there. So when I jumped into this one, I was still excited because of, being such a fan of the first two and just a horror fan in general and a zombie film fan, and gore and all of that stuff. So just like many of you out there that are fans of this stuff here, I was really just like, I went into this film with high hopes, So first of all, this film here is directed by Danny Boyle, and we have another director that's directed alongside of him, I think. I forgot his name, but this one here stars Aaron Taylor Johnson as Jamie, and then we have a child actor. I mean, we have a big cast here, but I just want to talk about three people here. Alfie Williams as Spike. Okay, this is his son in the film. And then his wife, also, that is kind of shown very vaguely throughout the first part of the film. She's played by Jodie Comer. Okay, her name is Isla or Isla. It's Isla, so I'm not sure if it's pronounced Isla or Isla. But we kind of get introduced to these these three characters in the beginning. The film starts off with, as we saw in the trailer. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it just starts off with with the TV, the kids watching the Teletubbies, and then all hell breaks loose from there. That scene, by the way, didn't have to be in the film. It kind of threw me off a little bit. I'll talk about that in spoilers because I want to have a little small spoiler section here in a few, seconds, not seconds, minutes. But that scene wasn't necessary for me. It was a really good opening. It was so good. It connected to 28 Weeks Later. That opening scene where it's immediately intense. It just goes wrong right away from the get-go. But I don't think it was necessary. So we start off with these two characters, mostly, right? Mainly, Jamie and Spike. And they show a couple of scenes, very, very small scenes of the mother, of Isla. Okay, I'm just going to call her Isla. And the goal of this film here is to have the child eventually kind of take the lead, Spike. But the introduction to this first, involves mostly him and his father. Now they're in this kind of island located in London, I believe, in a little island in the middle of the ocean that protects them from the mainland where you have the infected. They're still infected out there. The virus is still active. All of that is still happening. But there are so many changes that have happened in this film compared to the first two. Okay, but anyway, they're in this island that separates them from that mainland, and it's separated by like a long dock or something that connects it to the main island. And on that dock area, I'm just going to call it a dock because it kind of looks like a dock by the ocean. Very, very long. It's like miles, a couple miles long. Like, I don't know, I'd say about, not miles, maybe a mile long, I'd say. Something like that. Looks like about a mile or two long. But anyways, this here is kind of covered by, this tide that's called, by the ocean. It's covered by a tide, by a high tide at some points during the night or the day. And eventually that tide goes down. When it goes down, they can cross that. When it goes up, you can't cross it anymore. So that's kind of like a protection for them, aside from the wall and all of that's guarding that's around the island. So that's a pretty good idea there, what they did. Just kind of start a new civilization there. And this is where these two characters are located. And so the goal of this is that, the kind of like the plot here, at least I thought, right, in the beginning is, Jamie's character wants to take Spike out to hunt and learn how to kill zombies, how to kill the infected, which I think they're a little bit more than just zombies at this point. They kind of did some variations here, which I really appreciated. But he wants him to go out there and just kind of get good at killing, obviously kind of like passing the torch. But someday when he's gone, his son can take over. And I thought that was really cool. Like that concept alone could have just made the whole movie. But there are some changes that happened that kind of, they lost me at some point. So before I continue, this is a film where I had mixed feelings about. I'm not like against it or for it. This is kind of like I'm in the middle, So As this, we get this kind of relationship or exploration with these two characters, with the father and son going to the woods or to the forest for the son to learn to kill zombies or whatever. Everything is just it is just shot very, very nicely. Like the whole the whole film, I should say, it's just shot beautifully. All the landscapes that we see, like the visuals are beautiful to look at. I mean, I was at the edge of my seat at some points because it was so good to look at. I was smiling. I mean, compared to the first two films, this one was the best one that was shot. Like this one was shot the best, and it didn't have the shaky cam, which I'm so glad it didn't. It did have a couple of shots here and there where they were getting a little bit annoying, but it wasn't as bad as like shaky cam. So I'm glad they didn't have that in this film. For those of you who hate shaky cam, this is not included in this film here. So as we get this kind of exploration going on, there's a lot of like scary like sounds happening, like the whole sound design as they get further and further into the forest, as they run into infected, all of that. It just works so good, and then they're just kind of doing like these cutbacks to times of war in the past that are supposed to connect to the film that's happening, where they're like, they have to go and survive and fight another threat, right? Kind of like time of war between humans and zombies or infected. And they kind of keep, referring back to these past wars as you progress into the film. Those, for me, by the way, they weren't necessary, but they were really good. I think they emphasized or like and kind of enhanced the horror aspect of the film, but they didn't really do much of anything else besides that. It was just kind of scary to hear like the muffled sound, the old kind of disoriented dialogue or whatever. Like the song that you hear in the trailer with the marching and all of that. This was happening in the film, and I thought it was so good. So as we're getting introduced to the whole world here, I am so in. I was invested. I was yeah. So everything was just working well with this whole father and son, going into the forest and hunting. And so at some point here, they run into this big zombie here. Okay, this is when I was talking about variation. So with non-spoilers, we saw this in the trailers. There's a really tall zombie, like a tall, kind of long hair, big guy. They call them the alphas. Okay, so these are really big guys that are in the film here. And well, when they run into this specific zombie here, I mean, it was so good. It was gold, because at that point it was like terror. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. And their ammo, by the way, like their weaponry is super limited, where they don't really have like actual guns to shoot these zombies. So, we can see in the trailer that they have arrows, and that's pretty much it, right? So there's no guns or anything going on here. Not to say that there's no guns in the film, but these specific characters, they only have arrows. So when they run into this specific zombie, they just run like hell to save themselves. And this whole sequence it's anxiety inducing. It just is so intense. It works well. The music, the whole like, just what do you say? How do you say it? Like I can't even think right now. Like the sound design, like the music, and then the picture, like the color grading, all of it just worked so good. And you get this whole like struggle of survival between these two characters, and then the child is like new at all of this. He's still afraid, he's still hesitant, and all of that. So this was just pure vulnerability in a child, and then a grown man trying to teach him how to survive. So when they run into danger, it gets crazy. It's just as crazy as you thought it would get. So all of this was working so well for me, but eventually at some point there's a conflict. I'm skipping a couple details because I don't want to spoil the film. There's a conflict that separates both of these characters. And this is where the story kind of changes into, it changes focus. Where now we have to kind of look at another character's perspective. This character is the mother, right? The one I mentioned in the beginning, played by Jodie Comer. So this is where the film kind of focuses more on her. And at this point here, there were still, good scary scenes, good sound designs and all of that. But I think that right here is where it kind of lost me, because the film started to feel like a different story. It went from like apocalypse, survival, you know, limited ammo, limited supplies. Like you're just at the edge of like danger, or what is it called? Like at the hands of danger all the time. To just like not much danger happening anymore. Um, just drama, a lot of talking. There was a couple of like comedic, moments in here that still worked really well for me. But all of the horror aspect of it, like the whole scary theme and all of that, just kind of goes away. You start to kind of get this like feely, touchy feely type of story, um, and it just didn't work for me. So I mean, my final thoughts on this film here were a 50-50 because like I kind of have 5 out of 10 or whatever because of that reason. Like the story just started off so good, it hooked me, but then it just lost me, after like halfway through the story because of the focus that it was going towards. There's characters that are just forgotten about. There's hardly any explanation, for like the causes of certain mutations of the zombies, all of that, which I didn't really mind. But it's just like that second half just destroyed me. I wouldn't say that this film was a waste of time or anything. It's still recommendable. It's still good to watch, but the story does change, kind of dramatically to where it feels like 2 or 3 films in one. Okay. And this is when when I want to give you guys some details on what those changes are. Okay. So I'm going to go into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Okay. The spoiler part, I'm going to make this quick. Okay. So Jamie and Spike are father and son, right? And they go out, he tries to show Spike how to kill zombies, and they run into like these, different types of infected in the forest when they go into the mainland. Okay, like once they get out of the island, the tide goes down and they cross through that whole long dock. I thought that was so good. But anyway, as they're in the forest, they run into these big, like kind of, fat zombies that are just kind of crawling on the ground like slugs. We see one of them in the trailer as well, like the back part of it. And these things are scary, man. Like I was just watching them like kind of crawl, and there's more of them, by the way. There's more than one, which I was shocked. I thought it was only going to be one based off the trailer. And by the way, the trailer, it shows a lot of highlights in the film that happen in the film, which are mostly take place in the beginning, maybe halfway, but it doesn't really show the last parts, which, would probably make the advertising questionable. But it advertised all the good parts. So all of this that's happening, all the good parts that are happening are when the father and the son are together. When they run into these big zombies, the father tells the child to shoot it with an arrow, right? Their ammo, that the only ammo that they have is arrows. So he tells them to shoot it in the neck, and then they run into, eventually he does succeed, which he does succeed in, and eventually they run into more, which they keep shooting at, right? And then as they're making their way through the forest, they start to see clues of the zombies kind of getting smarter. And by clues, I mean like there's like a body of a dead deer, just kind of dismembered, all of that. And there's a head. The head of the deer is on top of a tree. And so the child notices and tells the dad, hey, there's a head here, and so the guy goes up over there, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, he goes up to the tree and he sees that there's a head there. And so that's when he's kind of like, whoa, this is something new right here, right? So this is when we get introduced to what they call the alphas, right? The big, tall zombies. And these guys are like leaders of certain groups of the regular zombies. And by the way, they're all naked in this film. So that like they no longer have clothes or anything. They're just all naked, and then like the alpha, he's like the alpha zombies are like leaders of certain squads or certain groups of zombies, and they command them to attack or not, right? So that was pretty good. That was a new thing that I saw in this film. It reminded me of Army of the Dead, by Zack Snyder, right? So they kind of had the leader zombie there too, which was good. I mean, it was so, but it was still good. So same thing was happening here, just a little bit less human, just more zombie type thing, right? But they still had a leader. And so Aaron Taylor Johnson's character and his son, they run into this guy, and they obviously can't take on him with just arrows. So they have to run away when he unleashes all these zombies to go after it. Okay. And this is when they're running through that field and all those zombies are chasing after him. This was so like Attack on Titan type vibes here as well. So when they're getting chased through the open field and all these like creepy naked people are just running towards them. Definitely like Attack on Titan right there, and that's what I got from that shot there. But all works good. They, eventually they outrun all these zombies. I don't want to get to all the nitty gritty details. So eventually they outrun the zombies, and then they come back to the island, where they, exited out of. So they're coming back to the island. The kid finally got his practice. He killed a couple zombies here and there. So they go back to celebrate that he accomplished that. So when they get to the island, they have to cross the whole dock, right before they get to the actual island. And when they're crossing that dock, they're kind of running away from a couple zombies that were chasing them in the background. So they have to move because this alpha as well is chasing after them. So they're going through the water. The tide is not super high, but it's not low either. So it's kind of blocking the dock, and they have to kind of see where it is, by just kind of staying straight as they're going forward, like kind of walking straight. So it's really tough, but they're going through this little low tide there, like a mid tide, and they're getting closer and closer to the island. But then they notice that the alpha is right behind them. This scene here, I'm not gonna give it away, but man, there's like a little combination of two scenes that are happening here. Like a celebration scene where they're like celebrating in a house, playing music, and they're getting chased in that dock area. And when you're listening to both of these scenes together, it really creates this really bad anxiety. Like it's stressful to just watch them struggle. And so they're yelling like they're getting to the gate. And so, I won't ruin what happens there, but it's so interesting what happens here, how the way they capture these shots. And, this is where the alpha is chasing them, right? Cutting forward, when this conflict happens between the father and the son, right? After all of these kind of chases and experiences and things that they were going through in the beginning of the film, when this conflict happens, it really made no sense to me. So this conflict is basically just about a doctor who James did not tell his son about, his son Spike, in order to save or find a cure for his mother, Isla. Okay? So when the child eventually finds out that there is a doctor out there who can maybe cure his mother from her sickness that James hasn't told him about, right? He finds out through another character in the film here. When he goes to confront his dad about it, this creates the conflict, right? And he says, hey, there's a doctor out there you're not telling me about that can save my mom, or do you want her to die? All of this. So this leads to this separation between these two characters. And then they make James, the dad, right? They make him seem like a really evil person, to where they kind of push him aside, towards some point in the film. And then now the film focuses on Spike and his mother. So this is where Spike just kind of like, after that fight with his dad, after him revealing that secret of that there is a doctor out there, but he's lost his mind, he's out there in the mainland, but he definitely can't save the mom, all of this. The kid still says, hey, there's still hope. We're going to find this doctor. Okay, so they have this fight, and then Spike tells his dad, just leave us, go away. And so, what's his name? Jamie's character just disappears. He just kind of like gets angry, and that's the end of the fight, and he just walks away. And so now the kid ends up taking his own mother, his own sick mother, out to the mainland. He creates a distraction in the camp, and then they all, like the guards get distracted, and then he goes through the docks and goes out to the mainland with his mom, with just bows. And his mom is completely weak. They're on foot. So this is where I just kind of found it non-believable anymore, because I was like, I'm not gonna buy it that this kid is out there out in the forest where there's a lot of threats that he ran into with his dad. He almost cried too, and he's going out there now with his mom. So now the film starts to focus on both of these characters, and then they go through an adventure, here and there. They go through the forest. They run into more infected. They run into this character. I gotta look at this guy's name here. So Edwin Writing. So he plays this character that's like a soldier that got left behind by his squad, or his squad got killed, so he's the only one left. His name is Eric Zungvist. I'm just gonna go with Eric. So his name is Eric, and he ends up running into both Spike and Isla. Okay, and so now they're walking through the forest. He's got a gun. Okay, because he was like in the military squad or whatever, so he's got this gun with him, and they're just kind of roaming around the forest trying to find this doctor. And as they're making their way through, they run into this big alpha guy that, eventually kind of just ends up killing Eric. But they run into him because they're running towards these screams mostly what's her name, Isla, she's attracted by these female zombie screams that are coming from the distance. So she goes towards the sound, which is like, are you kidding me? Why are you going that way? Towards the screaming sounds. But she goes that way, and then the kid and Eric just follow after the mom. They're like, where are you going? And so I guess these screams are coming from a pregnant zombie, and she's trying to give birth inside of like an abandoned bus, or not a bus, a train. Right? So they go into the train, they run into her, and then the mom just somehow ends up helping her deliver the baby inside the train. And the baby's completely fine. He's not infected, he's just normal, which I don't understand how that happened. And I think the father of that baby was one of the alphas, because when they're trying to, when the baby is born and the mom's kind of carrying the baby, Isla, she has the baby in her hands after she helps the zombie lady give birth. She has the baby in her hands, and Eric, the soldier, he's like, hey, shoot that baby, it's infected. And they're like, no, it's not, he's fine. So then you have Spike standing in front of his mom, kind of defending her. And then Eric is like, oh, I'm gonna count to 5 or 3 seconds, whatever. And then if you don't let him go, I'm gonna shoot you all. And eventually this alpha ends up grabbing him from above. Makes a really terrible sound, by the way. Like just a sound that anybody can make when they're trying to be scary. I'm not gonna give it away, but it's a really terrible sound that kind of made me laugh. But he makes this sound when he grabs Eric from above the bus. It's like there's like an opening above on the bus, or not the bus, the train. So an opening above on the train. He grabs him like this and he just pulls him up, and so that at that point Eric just gets killed, and now it's left to just Spike and Isla to kind of continue surviving on their own. This alpha eventually chases after them, and then they got nowhere to go, so they're just running and running, but they have nowhere to go. The female zombie that gave birth to the baby is already dead, so the alpha continues to roam or follow after Isla and Spike, and so they just run into a point where they're tired, they can't run anymore, and they just fall, and they're just waiting for the alpha to come and kill them. This is when the doctor that they were looking for, he runs into them and saves them from the attack of the alpha. So the doctor is played by Ralph Fiennes. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's Ralph Fiennes. I've seen this guy in a couple of movies as well, but I'm not too much of a fan, or I'm not too familiar with him. So he's the doctor, though, that's out in just the mainland, out in the middle of nowhere by himself, somehow survived already, after all those years. But he saves them from this alpha. His name in here is Dr. Ian Kelson. Okay, so Ian Kelson eventually leads them to where he's kind of stationed at. And this is where it goes through a series of just talking, conversating here and there. They find out what is wrong with his mom. And it turns out she has cancer, so they pretty much have to kill her because there's no cure, there's nothing that can save her. And the whole mission towards the doctor, was just a kind of a waste of time. We didn't get any more of Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, Jamie, which was a heck of a cool series of scenes with him and his child getting attacked, getting cornered by all these zombies in the beginning, making everything so tense. All of that is just gone. So now they're completely safe. They're surrounded by all of these trees or whatever, and just a series of a whole mount, or what is it, like a statue? I don't even know what to call it. Like this whole mount of skulls that the doctor built up, stacked up from all the dead that he's burned. So all these skulls are just stacked up. And so after they kill his mother, there's a moment that's supposed to be like a tear-jerking type of moment, which to me it didn't really work. It just seemed more comic-y, like if you were watching a parody. Okay, there's a scene here where after they find out that the mother can't get a cure, they have to kill her, and so eventually the doctor, Ian Kelson, he burns the body of the mom, and the kid just kind of has to accept it, and he's sad and he's crying, but eventually after he burns the body of the mom, he brings the head back to him, the skull, and says, "Where do you want to put it?" That to me was just really cringy. It was unnecessary. I didn't know what they were doing here. But he gives the kid the skull, and then the kid just climbs up because he's like, oh, I want to pick a special place for her. So he goes all the way to the top of the mount of skulls, and he places it up at the very top. And he gives it a kiss and everything. But yeah, this didn't work for me, man. I just don't know what was happening here. So now, after a couple of moments left with the doctor, and Spike, the doctor ends up telling him, "Hey, it's time for you to go back home to your island," right? So somehow the kid Spike ends up making it safely back to the island by himself, carrying this little baby that was just born, right? It doesn't even stay with the doctor. He takes it with him. So he ends up making it to the island and then crosses through like the low tide through the dock, and then he drops off the baby there in the main gate, and then he leaves a note for his dad, like say, "Dad, don't look for me. I'm going to make it on my own," and all of this. That they lost me there. I don't know what the heck they were thinking, but like this kid's gonna go off on his own. He's really small. He's like 16, and he's only gone to one mission with his dad, which is the only one time he went to hunt, and now he's just completely professional. So I didn't buy that now for 1 second. But the kid just leaves that note, and then this is when we finally see Jamie, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, and he sees the baby. They take the baby in, or well, no, he grabs the baby at the gate and sees the note and stuff, and he tries to run after his boy in the forest, but the tide is already too high where he just, he can't run through the water, and he starts screaming into the distance, calling Spike, but he's already gone, and he has the baby in his hands and everything. I guess that's supposed to be like symbolizing like a future, there's hope for humanity, all of that. Okay, I get that, okay, but I just didn't buy that the kid just made it back to the island by himself with all of those alphas just roaming around out there, with all of those naked zombies, the blob type of zombies. I didn't buy that, not for 1 second. So that's pretty much all we get of that character, Jamie, and he's just screaming, and that's it. And so now it cuts to the kid kind of cooking, frying a fish or whatever in a fire that he caught. And as he's just chilling there, just cooking his fish or roasting the fish, like a lot of zombies just, I guess they smell the fish and then they run after where he's sitting. So now he has to run away from his stationed area where he's about to eat his delicious fish. All the zombies just get to the fish and start just chewing at it. And now he's running down the road. He's on his own now, so he has nowhere to go. It's just all he has is arrows too. So there's no way he's gonna survive 5 or 6 zombies trying to come after him. Even if he gets precise, blows at the head, towards the head or whatever, there's going to be a couple that are going to eventually catch him. So he has to run, and he gets to this dead end where it's like a big wall that was just made by big boulders, and he can't climb over it. And now he's just kind of like, oh, desperate, and he's about to shoot. And then before he shoots all the other zombies coming at him, you hear this voice behind him or on top of the rock wall. And he looks up, and it's these weird, very clownish, interesting characters, very colorful looking guys that are just standing up there, and they tell him like, oh, looks like you need some help. And all of a sudden he calls his squad. What's one guy first that pops up, right? And he kind of has like this pimp suit going on, or like a weird, like hip, fresh look to him. He's got a chain and everything, like piercings. I don't know what the heck is happening at this point. This just seemed like a whole nother movie. They really just went south for me here. So this guy says, you need help? And the kid's like, yeah, I do. So then he calls the squad, right? Whistles at him or something, and then they just all flip off of the wall like Power Rangers. Like if you guys are 90s kids out there, you remember when the Power Rangers came out, like when they were about to fight, they would all kind of flip in the air. You'd get these camera shots from below looking up at them flipping, right? So this is happening in this film, which is supposed to be a very dark, serious, gritty film. Excuse me. So like, this doesn't make any sense to me anymore. And these guys are just jumping off of this wall and attacking, killing all the zombies. They're laughing. They're having a good time as their blood is just spraying all over their face. It's very Shaun of the Dead. Very, very much like that. And what's another one that was also with zombies and comedy? Oh my God. I think that was the only one. That's the only one I can think of. But it was very much like that. And I was just disengaged there. I disconnected from the film. So after all these guys kill the zombies, the kid's fine and everything. He's unharmed. The main leader of the squad, he asked the kid, like, you're probably all by yourself, so maybe you and I can be friends. You can join us. And I guess this is when the film just cuts off. The film ends. I guess that's supposed to be like a sequel, leading to a sequel with the kid now, and then these guys. I don't know, but I don't care about the sequel anymore at this point because I think they should have just stuck with Jamie and Spike through most of the film. Because when they were just starting in the beginning, it felt like a zombie horrific, like terrifying film. The approach was just beautiful. I mean, the whole film is just shot so well. Everything was just nice to look at. But the writing, man, the storytelling, it didn't do it for me. I don't know what they were thinking of just putting this Jamie character to the side, which was supposed to be like a guide, a mentor to Spike, being so young, like a young child. And then the mother, I mean, I still would have wanted to see her and everything, but it just didn't make sense how he was all alone with his mom out in the forest and they didn't even get hurt. And then the mom was already dying. So what was the point of all of this stuff? They just killed her when they get to the doctor. So I think when it came to the mom, she should have stayed in the house. She should just have died in the house, and that would have probably been a tragic ending and all of that. But it would have just been more serious, the tone, and rather than him like grabbing the skull, kissing it, and putting it up there. That was just unnecessary to me. So, and kind of twisted. I don't know how the kid was just not traumatized after that, but they should not have led where they led towards that direction. I wanted to see more of Jamie's character, and I mean, even if he would have gotten killed down the movie, I still would have wanted to see him more, where he's more with his son. They didn't need that conflict about the doctor. They didn't need the intro, by the way, like with the whole kids watching the Teletubby show and then the zombie attacks in the beginning. That was also kind of comedic to me, the way it was kind of handled. This is when we see the shot of like the priest and stuff in the church. I don't think that was even necessary at all. That was just kind of a big waste in the beginning. They should have just started in the island with Jamie and Spike. I thought that would have been a great intro there. And by the way, in the beginning, there's a kid that survives the invasion of the zombies. When they're watching the Teletubby show, there's a lot of zombies that just come and attack the house. It's weird how it starts. It's honestly really weird. But one kid survives and he goes into the church where he sees the priest, and this is where we get the shot of the priest saying like, "Oh, come, my children," and he's getting attacked and stuff. I don't know who this kid was. So as soon as the priest or whatever, he gets killed by the zombies, they all run out of the church, and the kid survives. And it cuts to like 28 days later or 28. I don't know how long, how much time passed after that, but it cuts to the island location. I don't know if this kid is supposed to be the kid that's Spike, right? I don't know if it's supposed to be Spike, Aaron Taylor Johnson's son, or Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. I don't know how much time went by, so clearly it would have been years, right, for it to be Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. But I was really thrown off at that part. I don't even know what the heck the point of that intro was. They didn't even like reflect back to it. They didn't even talk about his family dying. They didn't talk about anything. It's just like, "Hey, son, we're going to go hunting, learn how to hunt and kill zombies so you can survive." That would have been fine right there. But again, that didn't connect to the past, to the intro of the film. So I wanted to see more of that. But then when they went to just like, "Hey, now the kid's going to just be with his mom and find a cure. The cure was pointless. She was going to die. They kill her. He comes back to the island, has a baby with him, returns it to the island, and he goes off on his own and somehow survives, and he meets this weird Power Ranger gang." That's like the sequence of events there. What happened throughout the whole film. I was just disappointed at the end, man. I wish they could have led with another type of ending there. I did not like that at all. But yeah, you guys. So this one here, just to kind of give you my final thought, this was a 5 out of 10 for me. It didn't do it for me like 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later for me still stands the strongest. It definitely is the best film. I honestly thought the skinny zombie, the really skinny anorexic zombie in the film, was going to be Cillian Murphy's zombie, but it was just a random skinny zombie that looked similar to him, at least to his character in 28 Days Later. It was just a random zombie there. I don't know if it was a callback to something, but you only see him for like a few seconds. There's really not much of that zombie. I thought that was kind of a waste too. The makeup and all that was beautiful. I wanted to see more of that zombie specifically, because that was the only skinny zombie we saw in the film, and all the other zombies looked pretty well nourished or whatever. Because I guess they were eating the animals in the forest, so they didn't survive off of not eating, off of just eating humans, right? They survive off of eating animals as well. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say about the film. Do I still recommend you guys to check it out? I would say wait for it to just come out on a streaming service, or if you have an app with free movies or whatever, wait for that. Wait for it to come out like that, because if you are a true zombie horror fan, you're probably going to be let down by the direction that the film goes eventually. I was so bored at some point. My God. I was really bored, but anyway, that's all I can recommend you guys. 5 out of 10. Check it out on at home, I would say. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the film. If you have any thoughts that contradict mine, I'm open to it. If you really liked it, let me know as well. Everybody has their own opinion about the film. So that was just mine here. I would like to hear yours. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this with me, and I will see you guys on the next review. I'm going to see what I'm going to check out next, and I can review it for you guys, besides the shorts and all of that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Alright, thank you so much for sticking all the way to the end of the video, guys. Take care of yourselves. Peace.